Hey guys, welcome back to Vinceville Custom. So today we're going to do sort of a fun project. It's merging these two bases together for this Iron Studios Spiderman statue. So somebody contacted me. What they want to do is they want to create like a big, huge diorama in their house. They want to put like a scene of like, you know, water and the city in the background. And they want to put the Spider-Man statues that all connect to this base together as one big thing, which is a really cool idea. I like it. But the problem is the centerpiece is the issue, because this piece, I guess, is a Spider-Man, so he bought two of them, and I think another piece connects onto it, which is like, I think Venom or Spider-Gwen or something. So what he wants to do is take all those statues, put all the pieces together, and set up each character on those things, so it's like one big diorama with all the Spider characters all over it. But the centerpiece is the problem. So what he wants to do is he wants to connect these two together. Now, there's a couple ways of doing this, but we want to do it where it's sort of uniformed and it looks decent, because they are sculpted this way. So when you look at it this way, this is how they're sculpted. So I don't know yet if this corner here is a little bit lower than this one with the sculpting. So when you turn the same one around, I'm not sure if they're going to line up correctly, you know, as it goes. And if you try to keep them far apart, you run into more issues if things are going to line up correctly, you know. Plus, you know, what if this is glued in and it's a little bit more of an angle this way? What if this one is glued in and it kind of twists this way? So being far apart is an issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go outside the next day that's nice. Can't do it today, it's raining. I want to grind out the bottom of these bases. Like here, I want to just grind these out. Sadly, I'm going to lose a little bit of this sticker at the bottom here. There's nothing I can do about it. We're customizing. It's really can't, you know, make it completely perfect. But you can see there's a triangle in there. So if I try to start sculpting here, I have like almost 3 inches wide. And if you look at it, I mean, of course, my airbrush booth might not be perfectly flat. This kind of is like bending this way when you want it to kind of come up this way. So I figure I'm going to grind out the bases as far as I go, and then hopefully I can get the bases sort of like that close, like maybe an inch or a half an inch apart. And then once that's done, I can work out the base, kind of clean that up, and get them together. So my idea is, what I'll do is I'll Dremel holes, like maybe 4 holes in here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and the same thing over here. And what I'll do is I'll put Magic Sculpt in those holes, and I'll get a metal rod, and I'll metal rod them together. And then once that's cured up and locked in place, I can fill up the gap with freeform air from Smooth On, let that cure, and then I can get A's and sort of build out the A's and sort of match up the bricks and stuff here. You know, and then after the bricks are matched up, the problem is these parts up here I got to match up, which is going to be a little difficult. So I said what I'll probably have to do is maybe match these up as best as I can, but maybe kind of break them up a little bit so it looks like it's old and worn. I mean, that's the only way I could do it. I mean, I wish they would be perfect, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll work out well, maybe it won't. I'm not sure. We haven't gotten that far yet. But the bricks there should be fairly easy. That's just a matter of kind of just, you know, extending them and having some fun. Other than that, that's pretty much where we're at with this, because I figure once we get the base together, we sculpt it all out, we clean it up, we match up the paint as best as we can, then we can worry about putting the characters on the base, get Spider-Man up there, maybe position him differently too. I'm not really sure yet, but it's just a matter of connecting these. So hopefully the next day it's nice out, I can grind up the bottom of the base and actually kind of go with where I need it to. Now what I might have to do though with this is find the perfect flat surface in my house, whether it is on the floor, whether it is in the kitchen on the countertop, wherever the perfect flat surface is, that's where I'm just going to line these up, and I'm going to get the metal rods in them and make sure everything's lined up. What I'll have to do is I'll have to get like a straight edge and see if, like, you know, I can get it perfectly straight here, straight up there, and all that stuff. And then once that's done, it's just a matter of matching up the sculpt as best as we can. So hopefully by the time I come back in the next part of this video, I'll have the bases chopped out, the holes dremeled, and then we can figure out how we line them up. Okay, so I had a chance to chop this up, and as you can see, I grinded out the bottom of this stuff, so it worked out really good on the wheel. Not 100% clean, but it worked. So I grinded that down to about there, and I put 4 holes on each one. Now, this right here is semi-hollow, and this one here is semi-hollow, only because I guess when I casted this up, it probably some big air bubbles in here. but I got to be very careful because I don't want to drum all the way through and then I'll, like, you know, with so much force you go through and you break the other part. So I don't know how far to go, but at least this just gives me some rods I can do. So this is how far I wanted them to be apart, about like that. So I think that's a good position right there. It's about a ½ inch or so. Stuff should line up pretty well if I could find a good level surface. So my next step is I'm gonna have to do this off camera because I think in the kitchen will probably be the best part. I'm gonna have to set up a little spot on the countertop because I think that's the flattest I got in the house. Or maybe my desk. I don't know. I gotta look around. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix up some Magic Sculpt. I'll put a rod on each of these holes to kind of lock into place, let that sit over for a couple hours, and then the next day what I can do is pretty much start filling this in with some of that freeform air. Just kind of throw it in, because if I have those rods there, hopefully that'll help grab some of the stuff as well. Freeform air is really, really tacky, and since there's a lot of texture in here, there's a lot of texture over here and here, this should grab really well, especially once I put the eaves over. So it should pretty much lock in pretty well. The only part right here is this hollow piece here and then this hollow piece here. I might have to put glue in there with the rod first and stuff, so I don't know, I'll see. But by the time we come back, hopefully this will be kind of connected pretty well. Like I said, we're not really too worried about the base if it's not lined up 100% perfect, because like I said, what we could do is we could throw some rocks or webbing or something down there, you know, and go from there. But that's kind of where we're at right now. So I'm gonna get this locked up now, and then when we come back we start filling in everything. Alright, so sorry about the setup and lighting. I had to put this on this case. This is kind of like the flattest area that seemed to line up the best. I've tried a couple other spots in the house. I just like the way this one sort of looks. Now the only problem is like I said, you were working off of pieces that are glued into other pieces, so sometimes they don't always line up. So what happens is the bases are sort of flat, but when you have these bases completely flat, these pillars sort of kind of spread this way, because when they're glued in and attached, they're not perfectly straight. They didn't sit there with a measure and a ruler and make sure this stuff was perfectly straight. They just cast them up and glue them in and hope for the best. So I'm trying to put them together in a sense, you know, like this. So I had to put a ruler over here just to kind of notch this one up a little bit, so these kind of close together up at the top. And that's pretty much the best I can do for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this Magic Sculpt with these rods in the center sort of kind of just like cure up for a couple hours. I did it right now. I probably in like 2 hours or so it should be pretty stiff. What I'll do is I'll mix up some freeform air, and while this is sitting up here, I'll put some freeform air in there just to hopefully like lock it into place a little bit better just for tonight. So this way tomorrow maybe I can handle a little bit. Now there's a little bit of drops of glue in the middle there on the base down at the bottom, just so I could kind of maybe attach that too, just kind of keep it together. So yeah, there's going to be some filling and patching and stuff, but right now it's looking pretty good, and it's kind of like lined up exactly where we want it. Now, worst case scenario, what I could tell the client is, because this center base is sort of kind of wobbly a little bit in a sense, it's not completely flat and flush, and he wants to connect other pieces to it, what we could do is we could cut up some foam pads, and we could put pads underneath the bases, and we could kind of line them up better that way. It is just, you know, is what we're going to do, come up with. So I'll let this cure up for about 2 or 3 hours. I'll come back in, fill it in, and hopefully by tomorrow it's nice and locked up into place. I could really fill it in tomorrow morning, and then when I get a chance I could start, like, you know, seaming everything up. So I'm nearing the end of the day, and I mixed up some of the freeform air, and this is what it is. I got these 2 huge buckets of the stuff, really great stuff. I mix it up and I put a lot of it in the middle here. So I don't want to put any more in there. I really want to make sure that this is kind of bonded pretty well. So even though the Magic Sculpt in there kind of bonded it pretty well, I really wanted to make sure that I didn't handle this and stuff didn't bond. So I just put some masking tape around the areas to lock it in place. So there is a little bit of a gap on the other side of the base at the bottom because I try to line this up as best as I can. It's a little tiny wobbly, but it's either I line this up correctly or I line the bases up correctly and the base is off. So we want the pillar to be mostly even, so that's pretty much what I came up with. But I figured it's kind of like in the base, like in the middle. Like in the middle is kind of coming down at the base. So if we put like 4 rubber pads on this, 1, 2 here and 2 in the front, and rubber pads on the other bases, everything should line up pretty well after that. So we're in a good position, but I really wanted to make sure all this was lined up. Now, I got this stuff freeform sculpt from Smooth On at the Jersey Fest show, I think in 2018 or 2019. I forget when I got this stuff. So it's fairly old, and I'm really not a fan of the sculpt because it's so tacky and you really can't sculpt with it too well. So instead of this stuff going to waste, I'm going to be mixing it up and throwing it in here as well for the night. So I'm going to mix up some more of this, put it in here. I already put some more up here. I really just kind of want to fill this in and bond it pretty well. I'm just kind of putting it around. I have a funny feeling though, I may, only because these sides are so heavy and in the middle it's really, I don't know how well it's going to bond. So what I might have to do is I might Dremel a hole through like this pillar here, through to here, and then I might do one up there and sort of do a nice long rod going across just to be on the safe side. It's kind of like, I get paranoid when I do this stuff. I know that this stuff is going to bond it pretty well and nothing will ever happen, but who's to say down the line if the client, you know, accidentally puts it down one way wrong and all of a sudden this stuff shifts and there's nothing really bonding it pretty well. So that's just kind of my preference. I like to go overboard when I do stuff. So I'm going to fill this in anyway, get this nice and secured for tonight, mix up this stuff. This stuff is so tough and so hard to work with, it's a nightmare. So I'm going to get this mixed up. I'm going to fill in some more of this up here, especially up here. This stuff is so tacky that I think it's going to bond to this stuff really well. I'll put some down there as well and just go around. And then when I start, before I do any Ave sculpt around this, like I said, I might Dremel a rod through up here. And also up here what I might do is I might kind of put like an L shape up here, put in a rod and then fill up the top there and stuff. I just would like to go overboard. I want to make sure because I have a funny feeling, even though this stuff is sort of like bonded together, if you accidentally kind of lift it the wrong way or put it down, it might just sift. You never know. Who knows how long this stuff, you know, I don't know. I'm just one of those things. So I'm going to fill this up tonight, come back tomorrow. What we might do is drill some holes, put some rods in there, start planning out all the A's work, and then just keep plugging away on it. It's the next day, and this cured up actually better than I expected. It bonded up really well, as you can see. I think that free-form sculpt really helped bond it good. So what I did is I mixed up some Aves epoxy sculpt, and basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start matching this up. Now, if you look on this side of the brick, you can see that there's a cut here, and then it's a whole brick, and then a cut here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be cutting the brick here, and then I cut the brick here and keep going down. So it will look like there's a brick here and a brick going around, just to make it even, instead of throwing something in the center, because it'll look off with having like a little tiny thing there. So I'm going to try to keep it uniform. So right now it's just a matter of putting on Aves and sculpting it up. So I'll probably do one side today, or at least try to get most of one side done today. And then the next day I can flip it over, because if I try to flip it over after I sculpt it all, I'll mess it up. So I've been sanding this down now. So you saw I did all the sculpt work. Everything's looking pretty good, but still it's a little bit, it's hard to see what I did and what I didn't do, only because, you know, you're using one color sculpt and you're sculpting onto another area. So what I think I'm going to try to do is, if I could sort of use some tape and mask off this area, just kind of mask down here and go over there and hit it with some red primer just to see what's going on with all my sculpt work. If I need to kind of fix up some areas here and there, I will. And plus it'll give a little bit of coat. But there is one thing that I did run into, and you'd be surprised of how many times this happens when I work on statues. It's nothing major, but you see this little spot over here? Now, when I was sanding this down just now, getting a little bit closer for you. So when I was sanding this down to even this area out, all of a sudden this stuff started breaking off. There was 2 air pockets in the base right here. It didn't go down too far, maybe like a half an inch, not even a half inch, 1/4 of an inch down. So there is air pockets underneath the sticker that's here. So what I did is I had to Dremel it out a bit, and then I squeezed in Aves. I'm going to let this kind of cure up for the night, and then tomorrow I can sand this down. Now the bottom of this is going to be a little messy. There's not much I can do about that, only because these are 2 stickers at the bottom. So if I try to sand that down and prime it and paint it, it's really going to get messy, and then I could screw up the stickers and all that. So I'm not going to bother with that much. I'll probably just paint it and leave it alone. It's the bottom of the base. You're really not going to see it, you know. But this is pretty interesting that there is 2 little air pockets there. So I kind of went around the base just to make sure there was no other air pockets. But whenever I do custom statues, or, you know, I work on items and I strip them down and I sand, I do run in air pockets. So you, like I said, you know, there's a lot of statues out there where even if I'm doing a repair for somebody, you know, like say a finger breaks on someone, maybe sometimes the reason why it broke is because there was a little air pocket in there and there wasn't enough meat to hold the piece. Other times too, it's other parts of the statue. So, you know, your statues out there probably have air pockets in them, but sometimes they're in there so deep you'll never notice, and sometimes they're really at the edge, and if you hit it the wrong way, you pop it, and basically you got to fill it up and fix it. So that was pretty interesting. So like I said, I'm going to go to the garage now. I'll use some tape. I'll tape this up around. I'll prime this up, get this situated, just make sure things are looking pretty good. If I need to do any touch-ups, I will. And then after that, it's just a matter of figuring out where we're going to put Spider-Man, if we leave him with one of the holes there, or make a new hole, see what he says, and then we can start painting it up. So the base is all finished up now. Pretty much went over it all. I finished up the base, you know, the black base down here. Basically what I had to use was Spaztec Gloss Black on the bottom. Went through the airbrush, and then what I did is I dulled it down with some Vallejo matte varnish just to match it up as best as I could. So that's all done. Other than that, it is ready to go. So there is 2 holes up top here for the Spider-Man to go on top of. So we're leaving both those holes up there, so this way when the client positions his big display setup, he can put Spider-Man wherever he wants. And worst case scenario, if he ever really needs to reposition Spider-Man, he can always contact me. We can always put up a new hole system and put him somewhere else. Now, pretty much all the rocks, you know, all the bricks in the center are pretty much as lined up as best as I could. But because these top parts are not completely leveled, so like in casting, you know, even when you sculpt an item, like from your very first sculpt, if you make it completely perfect, when you make molds and then you cast up, you get shrinkage and you get warping and stuff. And then, you know, maybe if somebody pulls the item out of the mold and it's not completely set yet, they can actually kind of like warp the peaks on you. So it's not 100% even. It's not like, you know, like specifically if it was like 3D sculpted and printed out, everything's even. So I guess you would probably notice mostly on the gray areas it's not completely perfect from the side, but it works for what they're going for, and it's not a crazy expensive, like, you know, custom. It's just something that was simple. He can get a really nice dio set up where he can put, like, you know, the waterfall night picture behind it and put all the statues next to each other, and he can have a really nice setup without just, you know, putting two bases next to each other and having a gap there and it doesn't look right. So it works out in the end. So I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. He's happy with the way it came out, and it should look really cool. Now, sadly, I don't have the Spider-Man statues in hand to put them on there, and by the time he's done with this display, it'll probably be way down the line. So at least it just gives you guys an idea that, you know, if you like an item out there and it's a cheap statue or it's an expensive statue, but it's got a base or it's got an item in there, but if you know you take those two items and you put it together, you can make a really cool item. You know, this gives you guys an idea that there is options out there. If you take your time and you match stuff up, you could come up with a really cool idea. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back with some more videos.